Good morning, I'm Rowena Crosby.
And I'm Deborah Renner, and we're your co-hosts for this show. Thank you for joining us for the next 17 minutes for Your Invisible Toolbox, the show that's sponsored by Tero International and focuses on the book Row and I co-authored, and each week we look at a tool for working more effectively with others.
Have you ever heard the expression, there's no I in team? Well, you know, in days past, organizations relied heavily on corporate hierarchies and on individual accomplishments to be able to achieve goals. But more recently, we're seeing real benefits from teams, and that recognition has led for the end of the word I, and the new mantra has become we.
But unfortunately, there can be a dark side to teams. Anybody who's worked on a team for any length of time can recognize the fact that oftentimes there's one or two people who do the lion's share of the work, and others ease up or actually slack off on their commitments.
And this happens so often because it's really easy to give up individual accountability to the team, and actually it's quite easy to just make excuses when you know a team is responsible for something.
But for a team to be successful, each member has to be responsible and accountable for their actions, and each individual member has to follow through on that assignment that they're given.
So join us in thinking through some examples of teams. We'll give you a couple to think about and what the individual roles are. So have you ever heard of a profession called smoke jumpers? These are individuals, this is really dangerous work. They're highly trained to be able to jump into wildfires and to fight those. And so they go through specialized training, they participate on teams, and because of all that specialization, they can be assigned to different assignments, to different disasters, whether it's emergency management or natural disasters.
Well, and they each have to follow through, like a sports team.
Like a sports team. So do think about your favorite sports teams. We're just finishing up the Winter Olympics. Any of those team events, or your favorite football team, basketball, hockey, whatever your favorite team is, each individual has a position to play, and they're expected to carry out the roles for that position. And we all know what happens when the ball is dropped when you serve on a sports team.
Well, and we all know, if we've been through school, we get on project teams at school, and you get to the deadline of the project, everybody's grade depends on it, and usually there's a couple people that pull it through.
We've all had that situation.
We have. Team leaders, they have to count on each team member to be accountable. And if the team members are not accountable for their specific responsibilities, or if they can't work or won't work with other team members, the results can be disastrous.
And so that's the focus of our show today. We're going to take a look at the importance of accountability in the workplace, and we're going to take a look at a tool for helping foster and build your own accountability when you're serving on a team.
For our Invisible Tool of the Week, we're going to ask you to take a look at factors that can get in the way of your own personal accountability. And for our Development Challenge, we're going to learn how to dialogue to create an understanding around shared responsibilities of a team.
And we're really excited. In our Ask the Expert segment, we're going to welcome to our table Ashley Holter. She's the publisher of Right Brain and was our partner in publishing this book, Your Invisible Toolbox. And we're going to hear about her role in leading a team and in partnering with external groups for teams.
Exactly. She became our team member for a while.
She did.
Or we became hers.
Yes.
If you're following along, we're in chapter 28. There is no I in team in the book, Your Invisible Toolbox, and if you do not have your personal copy to follow along, please scroll down below, click on the link, and get your copy so you can follow along in future shows.
So let's get started. Fascinating research study in the Harvard Business Review that was published. It was a survey of 5,400 upper-level managers across the globe, and 46% of them, so nearly half of them, get this, this is what they reported. Holding people accountable was the single biggest thing that managers avoided doing.
That could be almost 2,700.
That's a large number.
Wow. But even with clear responsibilities, it can be easy for individuals to fall into the trap of assuming that someone else will take over the problem or the issue when working on a team. We see this, a great example of it is when a set of new parents takes a baby home from the hospital, a new infant home from the hospital, and for the first few nights, both parents get up when the baby cries, both attend to the baby, and then as things become more routine, one parent takes that responsibility as consistently getting up, and the other parent can actually be in a deep sleep, not even recognize that the baby was up during the night.
And some of our viewers can relate to that.
It doesn't mean that one parent loves the child more than another.
No, of course it doesn't mean that one loves the child more than the other. What it does mean is one parent has given up accountability. And we do tend to do that. When we know someone else, she will or he will get up, it allows us to rest deeply in our subconscious, knowing that the parenting team has this thing handled.
When the same things happen in business teams, it can be easy to slip into the assumption that somebody else will take care of it, and especially if your team has some strong members.
And that's really unfortunate, because the reason we form teams in organizations, leaders like to bring people together that have different perspectives and different skill sets, because together we can accomplish more as a team. Every team member counts.
There's a risk of failure when commitment slips, but there's also a perceived risk of telling someone that they're not being accountable.
Yeah, so holding each other accountable can be perceived as a step that leads to conflict, but if we handle that appropriately, it can really lead to amazing results. So let's analyze accountability a little further by looking at our Invisible Tool of the Week, and it is time to look at our Invisible Tool of the Week. You'll find it on page 69 of the book, your Invisible Toolbox. The chapter is called There's No I in Team, and the tool itself is to be fully accountable.
And it's easy to think that accountability begins with just following through on what we promise, but in actuality, the reason we aren't fully accountable at times is that there are factors that get in the way of us being fully accountable, and we have to really examine ourselves and understand ourselves in order to avoid falling into that.
So let's do a little self-audit. Let's begin to examine ourselves. We invite you to think about these things. Listening. How good of a listener are you? How good are your active listening skills? What about conflict resolution? At Tero, we define conflict as the presence of unproductive emotions in any interaction. How do you handle that? What are your communication strategies for dealing with conflict? What about change? What happens when plans change? How do you communicate that? And think about how you handle time and how you handle deadlines. What is your process for handling deadlines?
Those are all so important. There's a couple other gaps to consider. What about persuasiveness? How do you have the skills to influence your team if needed, or do you have the skills to be able to motivate them? And also the ability to build trust. Can your teammates rely on you? Are you able to develop good relationships with those you're working with?
And if you can identify your own gaps, then think about journaling so that you can figure out what actions you can take to influence or strengthen those competencies that are represented in those skill gaps. And then you can move yourself further towards building that accountability that's so critical to serve on a team.
It is. Now it's time to take a look at our developmental challenge of the week. And in the book, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, the author Patrick Lencioni suggests that the chief reason that teams struggle is lack of accountability with regards to team members. And he says it's often caused by the discomfort of calling someone out if they're not being accountable, or being called out if we're not being accountable.
And is there a proactive step we can take so that we can avoid having to call someone out? There are steps that we can take to be more fully accountable.
There certainly are, but it starts before you actually start the work that you're tasked to do on the team. We challenge you this week to sit down with your team and just discuss the following questions.
So what is your team's purpose? Why do you even exist as a team? What is it that you're trying to accomplish? Who do you serve?
And talk about the responsibilities. What do you have to do to accomplish that team purpose, and what does everybody's individual contribution have to be?
And think about boundaries. What are the limits that the team has? What decisions is the team able to make, and what decisions do they need to get approval for?
And as a team, as a group, establish your ground rules. So how will the team make decisions as you go along working through the project? How will you resolve conflicts? When and where will you have meetings? Who is going to lead those meetings?
And these simple steps to just have these conversations will help form a team identity. And it's really hard to give up accountability when you identify with a group.
It is. And now it's time to take a look at our social media posts of the week.
And those of you that follow Tero on social media already know we post useful links and content several times every day on interpersonal skills topics. We're going to look at 2 of those posts today.
And our first post takes a look at high-performing teams, and it's a TED Talk by Ken Thompson. And he talks about how to deal with team members that get in the way of success, how to handle those issues, what things look like when that happens. It's a fabulous TED Talk. So he's very entertaining. It's going to be on all Tero social media platforms on Monday. A great one to watch with your team.
And our second featured post that's going to blast on Wednesday on all Tero social media platforms is to an Inc. magazine article, and it shares tips on how to ignite your team and accomplish every goal and hold each team member accountable. Well, now we're at the point of the program. We're excited to welcome to our table Ashley Holter. We're at the Ask the Expert segment of our program. And Ashley is the publisher of Right Brain, which is a division of business publications. And she was our partner in publishing our book, Your Invisible Toolbox. Ashley, thank you so much for joining us. We're delighted to have you here.
Have you here. Thank you so much. Before we start the interview questions, will you share a little more about yourself with our viewers?
Well, as being 6 feet tall, it's probably no surprise that I've been a member of many athletic teams, so your comment about sports and athletics struck a chord with me. I've got a lot of experience with that kind of teamwork. But also with publishing, I've been in publishing my entire career. Started off with the Draft Horse Journal in Waverly, Iowa, went to the Waterloo Courier, and then joined Business Publications, first as part of the DSM magazine team, then went to the business record side, and now launching Right Brain, our custom division.
Oh, wow. Well, you're leading a new team you have formed, and so what do you look for in team members?
Oh, thank you for asking that question. We have hired several people to be a part of our business publications team, and then part of the Right Brain team specifically. I've been looking for people who've been inspired by what we're doing, who are open, who are excited, that show some enthusiasm for the projects and this new division that we're launching and creating and growing.
Oh, it's exciting. And from your leadership perspective, how did you facilitate getting that team on the same page, contributed as individuals but also as a team?
This is something that we thought very deliberately about as we were getting started, and we continue to assess as we go. But right now we have weekly team meetings. In fact, we have our meeting at 11 o'clock today. And we have a large white erase board in our office, and we have our vision with our goal, our projects, everything that we need to accomplish. We discuss that collaboratively together, talk about each individual's tasks, and then we also meet one-on-one each week for about 15 or 20 minutes to talk about individual responsibilities, how they're doing, any challenges, obstacles that they're facing, how we can help make everything happen.
That's so great. You also, your team and you, form a team with authors when they come to you to publish. What can you share about the process of that kind of a team? It's a real mixed team.
We see ourselves as consultants, partners, advocates, helping you through the process. If you were to go with a traditional publisher, you would hand them your manuscript and they would just take it and do it themselves without much involvement with you as the author. With self-publishing, you are going through the process blind, without anyone helping you and walking you through. With our hybrid,
there's a lot to do.
With our hybrid approach, we assist you along the way. We help you with editing, going through the many layers of that process, and creating a book that you see as your vision that's going to fit your audience and your needs.
We so were assisted by your work and appreciated what you were able to bring to us from Right Brain. Will you share some of those services, some of those individual services? We were amazed at how many we weren't even aware of.
We didn't even know what we didn't know.
There are a lot of steps to putting together a book. Some of them that we offer are the editing process, and that can be pretty extensive. The several steps in proofing, layout, determining the font, putting together all of the elements of your book so it's visually going to be easy to read and interpret and retain the information that you're sharing with your audience. With the cover, we worked with distribution, we worked with printing, we worked with explaining the royalty process and how you make money off of the project.
Yes, wow. Well, your team is part of a larger team at Business Publications, so how does that work out?
Well, we've recently expanded, so we've got the DSM magazine division, we've got the business record division, and now with Right Brain we have 3 full divisions working together, and then we also have the business office, so the behind the scenes folks that keep everyone running together. And so we've created our new team in part of our succession planning as Jeanette Larkin prepares to retire. And so each of us leading our divisions, Chris Konetsky for the business record, Chris Maggard for DSM magazine, Jason Swanson for the business office, have been learning to work together as a new team to lead the organization for the future.
What tips do you have for new leaders of teams or leaders of teams?
That's a great question. My biggest tip is open communication and clarity. Sharing with the team what the path to success looks like and making sure that you communicate along that path, how things are going. And there are some things as a leader you can't share with your team that you need to keep, but as being as transparent as you possibly can and open with the team has really helped me.
We have sure appreciated the partnership with you in the publishing of this book. What tip do you have for people who have an idea of a book or a book out there with regards to publishing?
It can be an overwhelming process. So the first step that I would suggest is really understanding what your dream is, what this vision of this book is going to be. If it's just going to be something that you want to put all your thoughts down and have it sit on your bedside table in your room and that's it, then self-publishing might be the way to go for you. If this is something that you think could be really big and you want to dream the biggest dream in being a New York Times bestseller, then maybe try the traditional publishing route. If this is something that you want to get your thought leadership together, help promote your business, your brand, and really share and engage with your audience, then hybrid publishing might be the best bet.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's my pleasure.
Yes,
Thank you for having me.
It was great to see you. Thank you for coming down here. And thanks to all of you for joining us. If you missed any portion of the program or want to share it with others, you'll find the entire program on Tero's YouTube channel. Join us again next Monday morning at 9:03 Central, where we will explore another tool in your Invisible Toolbox.
And now it's your turn. We welcome your suggestions and ideas for future shows. Email your ideas to ideas@yourinvisiblettoolbox.com and join us out there on your favorite social media platform. And if you haven't subscribed to Tero's YouTube channel, scroll down below and subscribe. You'll be alerted to when future shows are going to air. A thank you to Kyle Plummer, who is our director, Rachel Trainham, who is our camera person, and Ashley for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks to all of you. And that's a wrap.